Welcome to the K in Clarity podcast. I'm the host, Mezue. During this episode, we're joined by Christian Pran, CEO and co-founder of Digital Health Media. Christian has been instrumental in advancing patient-centric digital health solutions within the healthcare advertising and pharmaceutical media space. With over 20 years of experience in digital media sales and business development, Pran has pioneered innovative approaches to connect health publishers, advertisers, and patients through targeted media solutions and AI-driven tools. Pran's expertise in scalable digital health ecosystems is demonstrated through his leadership roles at My Health Team, where as Executive Vice President of Partnerships, he drove 600% sales growth over 5 years and established it as the largest chronic health social network. His current ventures focus on developing zero-party data collection systems and AI-powered conversational tools to answer patient questions directly, while ensuring compliance with privacy regulations. At LifeScript, Pran transformed the health publisher into an $85 million revenue powerhouse by creating eScript emails, custom content solutions, and programmatic advertising platforms tailored for pharma and CPG advertisers. In this conversation, we discuss the evolution of digital advertising in healthcare, the importance of data and privacy, and the challenges of patient engagement. He shares his insights from his successful exit in the media space and emphasizes the need for creativity and community in health solutions. The conversation also explores the role of AI and the significance of effective communication strategies in reaching patients. If this is your first time tuning in, here's the gist. The healthcare industry is buzzing with innovations, but there's a lot of noise and misconceptions out there. That's where we come in. Because of my experience in the healthcare ecosystem, I've gained a unique vantage point into the industry's inner workings. We're bringing you the conversations that typically happen behind boardroom and strategy sessions, the real challenges, innovative solutions, and game-changing insights that are reshaping healthcare as we know it. On this podcast, we're bringing you face-to-face with the industry-leading healthcare founders, executives, and innovators. We're talking about the nitty-gritty of building and scaling healthcare companies, the hurdles they've overcome, and the strategies that have led to their success. More importantly, we dive into the personal challenges that come with trying to change a system as complex as U.S. healthcare. So whether you're a healthcare entrepreneur, a medical professional, or just someone passionate about the future of healthcare, this podcast is your backstage pass to the minds shaping the industry. Now let's have Christian tell us a little bit about themselves. Welcome, Christian. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. For the people that are listening, can you give a brief overview of who you are and what it is you do?
Hi, Mezue. My name is Christian Pran, as you said. I am the CEO of Digital Health Media, and we are a company that supports the life sciences with advertising specifically for member acquisition and engagement, providing that contact with the end patient for pharmaceutical companies especially, and also in what we call DME, durable medical equipment. I've been in the media space most of my life, adding up to 20 some years in the business, and run my own business for the last 6 years. Always been in kind of the business development, product development and sales side. I live in sunny California and have 3 kids here, 3 dogs and only 1 wife, and grew up in Norway, so I'm not from Kansas.
Well, that's good to know. I know we've had a good conversation prior to this long time ago, but I'm excited to go into this. And usually we do an icebreaker before we dive into, the heavy meat of the conversation. And so with the icebreaker, So with the icebreaker that I'm going to give you, it's going to be if you could add anything that's a futuristic technology from your imagination to a healthcare platforms, what would it be? And how would you think it really change healthcare, especially from what you've seen from an advertising perspective?
A crystal ball would be good, but I think for the health space, I think it's just kind of getting up to speed with where a lot of other industries have already gone. Case in point is programmatic media, for example, has been big in CPG, consumer packaged goods, and services for many, many years. But for the pharmaceutical industry and the health space, it has taken a lot of years to get there. They are there now. And I wouldn't be surprised if 80 or 90% of the media that the healthcare space would spend, they will do programmatically based on data rather than content specific sites. So it's a big development in the media space, and a lot of pieces that goes into it, but that's probably one of those big changes. AI is going to be the next one for them as well, and I'm fascinated to see where that may be taking us to. That's an icebreaker. What do you think about entire future? Okay, this is getting
It breaks nice.
All
Now going into there, obviously, I know I just heard that you've done an exit. So could you tell us a little bit about that and working at healthcare from what you've seen as well?
For us that jumped into the riskier part of the industry of being in the digital space, it's not as risky anymore. It used to be a very small part of everything. The goal has always been the exit. That's the fairy tales that we are hearing about, the early into a company and they sell and you come out on the other end. And it doesn't happen all the time. You don't hear those stories. And for me, I've worked in 5 or 6 different places in my career, and this is the first real exit where I was in a position to have some ownership, and we sold at a good price, and I was able to cash out and get some of the money out. It's usually good money in the overall space if it's a reasonably established space, but getting to that place where you're in early and stay all the way till they sell is a great place. So I was lucky in quotation mark and had that exit here this year.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Could you tell me a little bit about what you guys did and maybe things that you learned on the way as a business owner?
Media is interesting in that way because it's the only product that I can think of that doesn't exist before it's sold. So being close to the money in the sales end of media has always been lucrative and interesting, and that's what makes media. Is why it exists. If it wasn't for advertising, none of this would be around. And then being able to choose follow your heart and your mind to the type of businesses that make sense when it makes sense, like when we are right now and for the next 5 years. To have an exit, you have to be in probably for at least 5 years to make it meaningful. And so I got into media sales or business development the whole time and early, so it's been 25 years altogether. And I think what I've learned is make the money before you spend the money. Try to build up a good, solid foundation. Now it's no longer a land grab. It's about profitability and growth and getting to the law of 40, where your growth percentage and your EBITDA percentage adds up to 40% total. That's when you're attractive as a company. That's when you're able to sell as a company, and being able to do that takes all of that. You got to grow and you got to be profitable.
How have that, as well as your background in media sales, really shaped your thought process around developing solutions within the healthcare sector?
It doesn't matter how good of a program you build unless eyeballs follow that people are interested and that it's sellable and buyable. That means that the client can buy into this. Social media, for example, for a long time was a no-go zone for a lot of the health business. They were very nervous about adverse events where people are talking about, oh, I'm using GLP-1 for weight loss. Now that is legal, but it used to be that was a no-go. They couldn't do that. That was off-label for diabetic drugs. And those things change over time, but having a social platform for the longest time was something you couldn't have. Even though the eyeballs followed, people were interested, nobody could buy it. Over time that changed, but those are examples of timing your product right and making sure that it's buyable.
I know as well with that, how would you think about data, right? in helping with people, the consumer? How are you kind of focusing on that? Who's the end user there and what their engagement experience is like?
I mean, following people on the internet is something that we in America are used to and pretty much embrace. Google and the third-party cookies and all of that stuff has kind of developed over time. But see what the big players are doing. Alphabet and Meta are very reluctant to follow people when it comes to conditions. And some of it is very reasonable. If you're suffering from schizophrenia or severe depression or HIV or a debilitating cancer, it's not something that you want popping up on your work computer when you're sitting there with a colleague. So that following people using data to serve an advertisement that is very clearly for a condition that is sort of protected or touchy is something that kind of intuitively makes you a little icky. That is what has held pharma away from a lot of data opportunities that are there. We already taken the data opportunity just about as far as anyone can. Most other countries don't allow that, and DTC, direct to consumer pharma advertising, is only legal in 2 countries. One of them is US, and so it's big, and the other one is New Zealand of all places. Everywhere else they're saying this is something for the doctors and not for the consumer.
How do you think about zero-party data collection? That was something that kind of popped into my mind.
It's the absolute key, and that's how we believe the industry is going to evolve. And permission-based marketing has been around for many, many years, honing and earning the right to communicate with us as patients directly from the company that wants to communicate. That is the holy grail. That's what you are looking for. That's why every single pharmaceutical company, why every company really, has some kind of a membership structure of give me your email address. There will be a disclaimer that you are opting in to receive information from me. There may be ways of opting out, like in Europe, easier way of opting out and managing that data, so there's privacy clearly around it, but owning that data and earning that data. That's the difference between zero-party data, which is a fairly new term, and first-party data that we are more used to. That zero-party data is about the consumer voluntarily and willingly and clearly is opting in to receive information.
Could you tell me a little bit about what you've learned about opting in and onboarding new patients and how you've really overcome that?
It's tricky. I think if you look at I'm not talking only about pharmaceuticals, but the whole life sciences industry, the websites where they collect this data has a lot of other goals than collecting data. They want the lawyers to want to be sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted and all privacy is very, very clear and disclaimers are there. And they want to describe what happens for the patient, and they want to talk differently to the healthcare professional. So there's a lot of conflicting interests coming in there. They cannot make much of any claims that hasn't already been approved by the FDA. So the sites get a little messy and not very user-friendly from a DTC point of view. So finding good ways of kind of getting quickly to the point for the consumer and still pleasing the MLR, the medical and legal review that these sites go through, makes the sites kind of created by committee and therefore nearly impossible to find. Where do you sign up?
Yeah, because that also kind of ties into privacy, at least from my thoughts. So how do you go from balancing data-driven targeting, as we mentioned before, with this privacy regulations in the healthcare industry to actually get people? Because I would say people want to solve problems, right? So how do you think about that?
I think most of these, there's not a lot of rule sets out there, very clear rule set. Europe does, US doesn't quite as much. So most of this is kind of the industry finds out what is the most reasonable approach. And for example, when the 2 big companies I talked about, Google and Facebook, decided to not really target by condition, they did it voluntarily. and not something that was a strict rule set on how to operate. The rule set is way behind people's mind and what the industries are doing. So the industry is ahead in many ways, and it's back to the lawyers. I think they don't want to be sued, and I think too that there should be privacy. There should be rules set. You should have the right to opt out. And it should be simple to opt out. It should be a one click to opt out. And I think that's reasonable. And you should earn that zero-party data to come in there. So playing nice in the sandbox, doing what is reasonable and right is something that you don't hear about a lot in the industry. It's more about how do I make some money on this? And finding that balance is what the digital health media has focused on, finding that right balance between cost effectively driving zero-party data or opt-in for the end client, as well as making sure that everything is above board, everything is clear, and the patient, the consumer, knows precisely what they're signing up for.
I would say maybe you've probably found a balance after doing all this for several years. How have you really learned, and what do you think other leaders can maybe take from your process and your thoughts that you've discovered?
Become good at what you're good at. I think it's even now the space of digital media is so wide. There's everything from social media to communities, condition-specific communities, general content site, map sites. There's so many different ways already, and within each one of those sub-platforms, media, digital media being the overall platform, we're already getting pretty fractured. There's a lot of different solutions. And if you follow the money back and see where it comes from with your core client, what is the marketing challenge that you're trying to solve for them? When you do that, I believe in getting good at a few things in that, especially as a small company. You want to get good at something that you can make a difference in. This should be scalable, and it should be profitable, and it should be possible to do with integrity. And when you find that, it's a place that you will sleep at night. You will be able to go to the bank and look at your account growing, and it should be a place where you are solving real problems for your clients and not something that you're making up.
Why did you kind of choose pharmaceuticals? Why not, maybe go into a health system or primary care? Why'd you choose that?
Well, I'm really more in the media space than I'm in the pharmaceutical space. So I could go many different places, and we do within the life sciences trade or industry. It's a big industry, and I think what online media, digital media really is in core is targetable. You can target very, very, very narrow of people. And when you think about it, the whole life sciences are looking for people with a specific condition. And they're totally uninterested in everyone else that doesn't have that condition. A lot of people want cars, so a lot of people need soap, a lot of people need different things like that. But if you have melanoma, that's the only piece that I'm looking for. If it's desmoid tumor or spinal muscular atrophy, I'm looking for that 20,000 people that have spinal muscular atrophy as a crazy example, a debilitating condition. So you're looking for the people that have that and their caregivers and their doctors. That's the group you're looking for. When you're that tight, when your targeting is that narrow, pharmaceutical companies and others know that you got to pay extra for that. So this is an opportunity to become good. If you can do good targeting, that means your operations and the partners you build and the structures you build, you can have the ability to distill and find the right people and get paid accordingly. If you are in a general market, the problem is now it becomes just a cost question. How can I just drive the cost down as much as possible? Now you're in a loss leader type of position.
I also would say maybe you probably found an innovative approach to direct patient media solutions. What have you guys could have done at your company that you think people can take from?
Fish where the fish are. It's going when you're looking for somebody with a fairly narrow condition, let's take psoriasis as an example, there are patient advocacy groups, there are groups online in the social space, there are content about it, etc. And like you were talking about, the data set of that, who are likely, and it's always a probabilistic or a likelihood of people having a certain condition. It's finding those people, having the wherewithal, doing the research, and finding where should the fish be, and then seeing if they are, and seeing if they do. Can you engage with this group, put an offer in front of them, and then get them to part with their contact information willingly? Can you do all of that? That's in the end what targeted media is, and specifically for in the health space. And none of that is easy. That's why it's not many companies that are in this space. And when you get good at that, if you get good at psoriasis, you can get really good at psoriatic arthritis, because a third of the people with psoriasis have psoriatic arthritis. And from there you can go wide again to arthritis. And if you go to arthritis, you can go to older people. If you're older people, the more conditions you may have, and what are the comorbidities. Horrible word, but if you're likely to have diabetes, you're likely overweight. You likely have other conditions, heart disease, etc., that fits it together. So seeing how things are interconnected based on their condition, because most people that have a condition only has one thing in common. It's that condition. It's not like other programmatic targeting where people that have these general things in common are more likely to have the condition. Psoriasis could be in any part of the population.
As well, I think with the approach that you've done, you've now find the fish, let's say, right? How do you make sure that you're ensuring that you have patient-centric strategies?
Good. That's a great question. So now that you know where they are, having an echolocation would be great. Being able to test it and seeing if is this true, are there really fish here? Having a good bait, if you want to continue the analogy as well. And it's usually an online, some kind of an incentive to do something. And in pharmaceutical, which is a harder one, pharmaceutical drugs are expensive in total. They then need to be covered by the insurance that you have. So, hey, do these people have insurance? How do these fish behave, if you want? And then the copay can be significant too. Thousands of dollars for a migraine medicine, even though it's tens of thousands of total cost. Your payer pays most of it. But nearly all pharmaceutical companies, as that example goes, have a co-pay program. There's a support function that the manufacturers provide. So if you sign up, and all you have to do is sign up, you can get that medication much less expensive, much more affordable. Offering that up right away, that's the bait. That's what attracts people into a structure. You still have to be where the fish are, but if you are where the fish are and can clearly say, hey, you pay too much for your medication, you may qualify for a support structure. And when you come to that site that helps you do that, it's not a bunch of other MLR approved content and the lawyers watching out for what you're saying. We still got to be privacy safe and not claim anything that we can't. But all you're really saying, sign up, if you have psoriasis, sign up for AbbVie's program with Skyrizi and get your copay as low as $0. That's quick. Try to go to AbbVie.com and see if you can find where you sign up for that. It's just about impossible. Sorry if any from AbbVie is listening. The other pharmaceutical companies are no better.
Let's say now, as a business leader, like you found the people, you got them interested, right? You're making sure that you're using patient-centric strategies to help them, right? Now, how do you actually build a high performance sales team, right, to, let's say, quote unquote, close them? What is that process then, and what have you found?
So how do you pick the right sellers or business development professionals? I'm a little sorry to say, but it's experience and network. It's the good old Rolodex. Like, who do you know? And the people that you know, are they the right people? And Have you built a relationship with these people? That means that when you're going over from one company to another, will you still be able to call, text their cell phone and say, hey, it's me. I'm now over at XYZ and I would love to talk to you about some new opportunities that we have over here. It's really cool. If you can get that call, you're a good salesperson. If you're an orator and you're fabulous in talking, you're still not going to get an audience. You're still not going to get in. Any buyer in their early days that are spending millions of dollars in deciding where are they going to spend their money among 10 or 15 max different places they are going to spend the money, how do you get through to them? They get a lot of calls, lots of emails, lots of LinkedIn outreach. How do you get them to react? Mostly because they're following their friends. All sales is a people business first, then what can you do for me, and not a shiny presentation and a beautiful reel. This is about relationships. So the short answer of it is use a seller that has already been successful.
I think with what you said there, a lot of your work is online. But how do you pair that online, building those relationships, that Rolodex, to in-person relationships there? Could you delve a little bit deeper?
Yeah, it's critical. Put the face to a name or an email address, right? It's getting that personal connection. And some are good at that, but you don't reach out to somebody that you never really met and go, hey, buddy, how was your Thanksgiving? It's like, come on, it's not how you approach people. That's like going up to a total stranger on the middle of the road. They will call the cops on you. So we got to think about that interpersonal relationship. And I really do believe in that face-to-face opportunity. It's expensive, really, really expensive to go out and for me in Southern California, get on the plane and fly out to New York and doing a lunch and learn and going out for dinner afterwards is $10,000 before you know it. And you may add in more people in there, but it's an expensive proposition. And that's why the big gets bigger, and having that opportunity to invite people to Super Bowl or whatever it might be, that those events are expensive, but very, very well utilized and effective. That face-to-face is invaluable. And you want people that your buyers want to hang out with. That might be an age thing, it might be a gender thing, it might be a lot of things around it, but it's having people that can interact with others, people that you would like to have as a coworker, somebody that you enjoy being with.
Yeah. And one thing I heard, recently I was talking to, another leader. They also work with like payers and different relations. And one thing that they were saying is, hey, healthcare is a very people intensive business. And I think we all know this, right? If you're in the healthcare adjacent space, how much it takes to move things along is you need people to do it, right? It's not just having a cool technology or, hey, my solution is better than XYZ, but really how can you speak to that person and, what they really want to solve. Additionally, I think that's something that I've learned.
Yep. No, well put. We got you. And I'm glad that it does. I got offered an opportunity to work with Google very, very early, and I kicked myself a little bit from an exit point of view, but I'm not glad that I'm not just selling keywords, because these things get automated. And I think programmatic to a large extent is getting into that space too, where it is so effective the way it's bought and sold, and it's such a low margin per 1,000 impressions that you are serving, that you have to do it online. And all of a sudden that human interaction is disappearing. There may be a job in kind of telling about your platform, but once the platform is up and going, there's not much work for a seller to do. That sales relationship, especially when you're starting a small company that is breaking in and have to take money from somebody else. The overall digital media space is not growing, doubling each year anymore. It is now in the health digital space, perhaps a 10% growth. And when you're up against WebMD and Healthline and Everyday Health and these big player, Healthline used to have a billion ad impressions per month. Can you imagine a billion? And you're up against them. It's like, oh, I got 20,000 members. It's like, how do you kind of take money from that company and give it over to you. Nobody has ever been fired for rinse and repeat in the media planning business. Do what you did last year. Client is happy with it. Do it again this year. Done.
Sometimes you got to stick with what's effective, right?
That's the hard part. What do you do when you're the new kid on the block?
Yeah. The shiny tools and shiny objects. So that brings something to mind for me, which is, how do you think about AI then, right? And where that's going.
Like, machine learning is fabulous. It's now available and understandable and implementable in a way that it has not been before. Machine learning has been around for a long time, and smart programmers have automated a lot of tasks over time. But now it's getting so good that the generative part of AI, of creating stuff, you're starting to look at that and saying, like, we used to have half of the people with a publisher were writers. Now you basically need a good prompt writer to create good content. Is it humanly created and is it tested and all of that stuff? Getting better and better. So that the cost for content is nearing zero. I think the next step will be conversational AI, consumer services sort of thing, where we are expecting now to get real smart answers when we are interfacing with the robot online. When that space has gotten to a place where we as consumers can interact with companies and get answers to 95% of the questions that we have. They're easy questions most of the time, and get a fast answer at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what you're looking for, that conversational AI that can guide you in the right direction. So I think AI is a fabulous, fabulous tool. It will replace people in most parts of the different industries, but you're back to that human interaction that you were talking about. You still want to meet the doctor, you still want to talk to the nurses, you still want to have a social interaction with people, you want to talk to other people that have the condition, you want to hear what they experience and how it made them feel, and AI can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that I've actually been seeing is how there's this thing called emphatic AI, right? Basically using the tones. I'm still doing more research into it, but how you're kind of working with the tone, right, of a person. I think we sometimes have a tendency as humans to anthropomorphize, different objects, right, and give it human-like qualities. And I think that's something that's interesting. But I think if we could, maybe there's a route in the future where, AI, quote unquote, comes more human-like and we give it more human-like capabilities. Yeah. Obviously not exactly tangible like us, but I think there's something interesting that can be said. But there's also the other aspect of, hey, you still maybe want to just interact with another human being, and how maybe AI is going to empower that relationship as well. I think that's going to be an interesting future.
Good word, emphatic AI. I'm going to steal that. And I think that's the empathy, that ability to kind of understand other people's feelings. Is you can have a sociopath doing that, right? You can, if you understand the value of being able to do that, and you can train AI to do that probably better than a grumpy person sitting on the other end that just had a really bad day. So I think you can do that. We've developed some conversational AIs to help people in the health space, and it was remarkable how open the visitors or the users were with that AI, partly because they knew it was AI. You get into men's health and stuff like that, you can talk about erectile dysfunction with the computer, no problem, because that computer has a much bigger bigger problem than what you have. They don't have any of copulating. But if you start looking at that willingness that we as humans have to share openly with AI, knowing that it is AI, to me is one of the most remarkable things in there. This years since people were being creeped out or freaked out about it. We're willingly taking part of it.
Beautifully said. This also ties me into another thing, is how do you maybe envision social networks? I think something that I've seen is the type of social relations that you have with another person helps the outcomes of people that have, gone through maybe traumatic events in their care actually get way better, just because, simply put, they have a better relationship, right, with another human being. And so how do you think social networks is going to maybe evolve or be put in the forefront of healthcare, especially when it comes down to chronic health management?
Community is very, very important, and I've always been very interested in seeing how that space developed. One of the very early beginning of these social community was called Alliance Health out of Salt Lake City, and a great premise of building those type of communities and getting some benefits out of it. There's got to be an interest, and there's got to be some word from our sponsors, or else they can't afford doing all that good work. And it becomes bastardized very quickly because you now have an engaged set of eyeballs that is very tempting to bombard with ads. And we can overdo advertising very, very quickly. Just one more, and all of a sudden you're boiling frogs. It's like you turn up the heat a little by little. And if you have the longevity and the wherewithal and the long-term thinking that says, let's not go crazy here, guys. Let's build a good product. I worked for the last 6 years for a company called My Health Team that did a fabulous job in exactly that. And I was hired in to help with the monetization of that. And that was one of the things we said. It's like one ad per page. Period. And we take a look over at WebMD and there's like 4. And it's like, no, one ad per page. If we don't sell the inventory, let's not sell it to programmatic. Let's not bombard them. Let's not try to make a few dollars and losing clients long term. Being able to do that takes steel to do. And if you can do it that way, you keep the engagement, you keep the audience quality, you keep the value for the advertisers that are handpicked and hand selected to be there and not junk it up. If you're able to do that, you can be very, very successful. So community is very important from a consumer point of view or a patient point of view of learning from other people's experience, but also in the media landscape. I think over time you will see more and more programmatic, that gravity is going to take us there, but also that core home. Not just hitting people where they are, but hitting people where they want to be, where they're within the content area and not just checking for their next travel experience and hitting them up there. Be relevant. In that relevant area, there's no better than the communities of all like-minded people that are all focused on the condition that you, the advertiser, are solving for. So I think those are the 2 areas that will survive the best and thrive the best in the space. And Swoop, that ended up buying My Health Team, they're the biggest in programmatic health advertising, and My Health Team is by far the biggest one in communities, condition-specific communities, and that's a perfect marriage. Even though they're two very different solutions, 2 kind of ends of the spectrum, the hard part is going to be for the staid and true in the middle that just have scale and have already squeezed every ounce out of the rock to try to get more advertising revenue out of the space. Those are the ones that are going to suffer.
Agreed. I agree with that totally. This ties me into something else I was speaking about and thinking about as well is, effective patient communications, right? And really being considerate of understanding where the patient is at, using the right lingo, the right jargon to make sure that the patient understands how you can help them. Maybe what are some thoughts there, things that you've seen on that side that you can speak on there?
Personalization of advertising experience would be great. Everyone agrees on that. But you're back to the lawyers. If you then have, yes, I'm reaching out to one audience for, take psoriasis, a skin condition, or eczema, a skin condition, it turns up very different for you and me. Specifically, I mean, with your skin color is going to affect how you look at the condition because it is a skin condition. And in a space like that, would it be more attractive for people to be hit by ads that are adapted to our skin color? Now you're in touchy terrain. And would it be effective? Yeah, I think it would be. Can you target by it? Now a lot of people are kind of shying away, but say that you could target by it. Pharma wouldn't make different ads. They talk a big story about how you would target around it, and then they have one set of ads, and you got nowhere. So if you're doing personalized ads, you gotta have different ad creative fitted for that personalization, and very few people do. It's costly enough to make one ad and getting it approved and focus groups and all of that stuff. And if you now got to make personalized ads, that's even harder. Could AI help in that? Possibly, but the lawyers are going to be involved.
And one of the last questions I want to hit on before we go into the lightning round is essentially you have a background in international business. How has that kind of influenced everything that you've done from a U.S. market perspective as a business leader here? And maybe also tie into key trends that we see. We spoke about AI, but how do you think all that ties together for yourself, and maybe advice that you'd have for other leaders as well?
I'm glad I'm here. I think if you look at AI, for example, US has no AI laws and lots of AI business. Europe has lots of AI laws and no AI business. They do go together. Is one more right than the other? Depends on who you're asking. Like for business, for consumers, or for the people that make money on it. So I think those are playing into the media space as well. Having a wide horizon, thinking internationally, could you learn something from other countries? I think you can. I think most of it is not very implementable, but I think it's good to keep an eye on what is happening. For example, the privacy laws for online advertising in Europe is very, very different from here. And primarily it is make it easy for me to opt out. Should we do that too? Well, you would have a higher opt-out. But are you filtering out the right people? Yeah, you're filtering out the ones that are least interested in your services. So you're kind of back to that zero-party data. Make sure that you earn people's trust and earn their email address and earn that privacy, and then be sure that you don't sell the data. I think that in the end is really the key here, and that's a powerful lobby of people that sell the media. When somebody like Google that would benefit from taking away third-party cookie, because now you're just going to use the Googleverse, they took them 3 years to decide no, we're not going to take it away after all. So that's a pretty powerful push that helped, that moved them in the direction that was good for many. I'm not sure if it was the best thing for the consumer, unless you say targeted advertising is a good thing. Perhaps it is. It's good for business.
Yeah, perfect. Now it's time for the lightning round. So my first question for you is, what's one skill that you think is necessary for digital health media success?
Creativity.
Can you dive in more into that?
You got it. If you're recently, we're 12 people, so we're a small company, and we got to do things better than the big guys. The big guys are obviously slower. They're obviously more of a rigmarole to make anything happen, and they may be more risk averse. So it's not enough to be willing to take risk. It's willing to take risk about the right things. So you've got to be creative in coming up with solution, and then cool enough, calm enough to make sure that what you're doing is right, or at least reasonably right. So when you put the limited resources that you have into something, you got to better be right, or you'd be bankrupt. So but it starts with creative. Then you can be careful. If you're careful first and then creative, you never get anywhere.
Yeah, agreed. Next question for you is, in one word, what do you think is maybe the biggest challenge in dealing and facing with patient engagement?
Interest, which is engagement. So I mean, that's a cop-out, but yes, it is. How do you, it's noisy out there. How do you get them not only to pay attention to me, but pay attention to me long enough for me to accomplish part of my goal? You can't expect everything. So interest, how do you make it interesting for people? What are the incentives?
And my last question for you is, obviously we spoke about AI, but besides AI, what's another innovation that made you think, That is going to change everything.
I think it was a ruling that never came through. FTC was planning to set in a rule in February of this year that said if you opt into something, you can only opt into one thing at a time. And think of lending trees. Like, tell me everything about your need for a home loan, and then you get blasted out to 10 different people. Angie or Angie's List were faced with the same thing. You bombard people because it's tempting to try to make more money out of one interaction. That one-to-one that FTC had as a consideration got stopped because there was a regime change in January. And that was a potential big change. And we have a change going through every 4 years. So when that comes, which is likely to do, I think there will be some significant changes in my little corner of the business, which is acquisition, lead acquisition, member acquisition, and engagement.
Thank you for your time today on the K in Clarity podcast. Summarizing everything that we spoke, what are some final thoughts that you have?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It was great to meet you and your listeners. Don't be afraid of trying. If you don't try, you're not going to succeed. And learn your trade. Learn as much as you possibly can. The audience that you are reaching are the people that are interested, that wants to learn, that wants to grow. And the successful companies are finding that area that is both big and underutilized. Find those areas, and when you believe you have found it, go for it. I think that's my final message is don't be afraid of trying, but be afraid of trying the wrong thing. Try the stuff that you believe has some action that you can really do something about. And if you work for a successful company, find out why they're successful and start the company.
Perfect. Again, thank you for your time. If people choose to follow you, where can they connect with you?
All the normal platforms, but LinkedIn is the great place for business social interaction like that. Or visit digitalhealthmedia.com. We're there.
Okay. Again, thank you for your time, Christian. It was fun having you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.